Pura vida is the feeling, the way of life of the ticos and ticas, the people of Costa Rica. Pura vida is the Spanish term for pure life, and it literally means that. Every day is lived without ifs, ands, or buts, as if every day were the last. The name of that Latin American country is meaningful and explains a lot about the national attitude. Costa Rica, meaning rich coast, refers to the richness of its nature, not a lottery win. One of the most valuable national treasures is the tropical rainforest. It is also the origin of numerous fruits and spices. For the people living in Costa Rica, the rainforest is the heart of the country. The rainforest also positively influences the climate, as it is home to thousands of plants and animals. Here, the smallest jungle dwellers are often the loudest, like the cicadas. Let us listen a moment to see if they really do have a vocal talent. In the jungle, trees can sometimes grow over 40 meters high. And like a high-rise building, there's a different world in each story. A world which has many secrets, of course. For the people here, the forests are therefore also a place of magic and legends. Costa Rica is the ideal tropical paradise. 2/3 of the jungle was already destroyed before strict laws were put into place to protect its ecological system. And now the good cause is even profitable, because the forest has become a real tourist attraction. There is nothing nicer than walking through the endless green and breathing the variety of scents. And discovering something new every meter, such as this orchid bud that will soon beautifully bloom. Just the orchids have 1,200 different species. In this Garden of Eden, no one needs to help. Here, everything grows and flourishes on its own, even without a green thumb. Yes, what would we be without oxygen? And what would Tarzan be without the famous vines? We don't need to be afraid to walk through the jungle because wild predators are rarely seen. There are, for example, jaguars, but they are loners and shun the limelight. And basically, we are not prey for big cats and reptiles. Rather, we should look up now and then. Sometimes a broken branch or a heavy fruit falls from one of the tree's upper floors. The dangerous animals are more likely the small, inconspicuous creatures of the jungle. This includes certain types of ants, like the ecitons, which, with their army, can even be life-threatening to horses. Ant trails can be seen only when looking at the ground very carefully. An exception is the leaf cutters. They are difficult to overlook. Their plant prey evolves over time into a kind of compost that serves as food for the hard-working crawlers. jungle is alive and constantly in motion. Before we continue to explore the interior of the jungle, we'll rest a little at the breathtakingly beautiful beaches on the edge of the tropical rainforest. The nearly year-round constant 28 degrees Celsius water temperature offers the coastal regions of Costa Rica, located on the Pacific Ocean, perfect swimming conditions. One of the most pristine areas is the peninsula called Nicoya in the province of Guanacaste. Those wanting to avoid tourism can find deserted beaches here and feel like Robinson Crusoe. The National Park of Manuel Antonio extends over 7 square kilometers of the central Pacific coast. So it is the smallest national park in Costa Rica. It is popular because of the green countryside and white sandy beaches, not only for tourists but also for locals. Even though 350 plant species, over 100 species of mammals, and nearly 200 species of birds live in the national park, you see very little animal life because of the relatively large number of visitors. But a walk is always worthwhile in this picturesque landscape. Here one may well unwind and enjoy the gentle breeze and the sound of the waves. The scenic beauty of Corcovado National Park is also unique. Impenetrable evergreen rainforest, a deserted Pacific coast, mangroves, and a freshwater marsh in the interior characterize this ecological paradise. Here we see one of the most diverse and most important food and raw material suppliers of the jungle, the coconut palm. It provides not only food and drink from its fruits, but also wood and leaves for huts and their roofing. The tree canopy in Corcovado National Park reaches a record-breaking height. In some places, almost 80 meters were measured. Among the 140 different animals that live here, there are all kinds of monkeys, which are at home in Costa Rica. These happy climbing fellows are squirrel monkeys. Where did they get their names? Well, with a close look, it becomes pretty obvious. And they are remarkably similar to us humans in relation to baked goods, so be careful bringing along bread or crackers. In the national park Braulio Carrillo, we move through dense branches. This can be a bit stressful. The park is not only huge, but also hard to walk through, and only has a few paths into the interior. The jungle here is divided into 3 sectors: Sector Surquí, Sector Carlo, Quebrada González, and the Volcano Barva sector. The park rises from 36 meters up to nearly 3,000 meters. The top is comprised of the inactive volcano Barva. Thus, there are 5 different climate zones. Further up, the air is not only thinner, but also much colder. If you want to go really high, you can take the cable car, called teleferica by the locals. However, let's stay down here on Earth first. And it is not as fertile as the enormous plant growth might lead you to believe. Due to the constant humid climate, the ground is very weathered and nutrient poor. Thus, plants get their nourishment from dead plants on the ground. It works like a kind of recycling system. We experience streams, rivers, lakes, waterfalls, pure nature and diversity in the National Park Rincón de Vieja. It is not unusual to see iguanas here. We may indeed be lucky and see one of these interesting animals later. This lush, deep green is the characteristic of a primary forest. Let's take it in for a moment. By the way, those are banana leaves from which the ticos prepare the famous tamales. In the process, steamed corn pockets are wrapped in the leaves. Very tasty. The jungle is a fascinating world, a brilliant cycle of life in nature. Oh, an iguana. Buenos dias, amigo. Wow, he's a big boy. If we keep quiet, we can watch him for a while. Iguanas usually live on the ground, but they are also comfortable on rocks. However, they are seldom seen in the trees. You can clearly see that the tail is longer than the whole body. Iguanas are not particularly caring parents. The babies must get along on their own very early. These are pelicans. 260 different bird species live in Rincón de Vieja. We don't need to know the names of all of them, but they're fun to listen to. These three buddies are turkey vultures. Today, fish is on the menu. Enjoy your meal, guys. The country has 12,000 known plant species, which still can't be fully identified. On 1 hectare of forest land, there are an average of 200 different tree species. A journey through the jungle is not a normal walk, and there are not always pathways like people in the city are accustomed to. Therefore, it is necessary to be well equipped to cross wet stones, rivers, or deep mud. Flip-flops, for example, are not appropriate footwear to explore the rainforest. And sometimes tourists forget to protect themselves against mosquitoes, which are particularly plentiful in the humid forest. We need to drink enough water because this trip can be exhausting. Beware that a jungle path doesn't lead strictly straight ahead. Unsteady paths take turns with roots and branches. Occasionally, we have to hold on to tree trunks. Every effort is always rewarded by magnificent views and discoveries, so we push forward, curious to discover what awaits us. Like everywhere, people love to tell old legends in Costa Rica. Often, they're meant to encourage the morale of young men and women. One of those old stories from Costa Rica is about a farmer who lived with his son, Joaquin, in Cartago. Joaquin was often in pubs and was a womanizer. The farmer got angry and kicked his son out of the house. His cursing was so tough and his eyes burned so hot that Joaquin turned into a black dog. The name of the dog, it seems, was Cadejos, and Cadejos wore a chain around his neck and chased anyone on the road at night. Still today, you can frighten kids with the saying, "Cadejos will get you." Another nice legend is the story of La Cegua. It's a myth about unfaithful men. La Cegua was a beautiful woman living in the town of Cartago. She was unhappily in love with a Spanish officer who had forsaken her and broken her heart. A terrible curse caused La Segua to meet men anywhere at any time. As a beauty, she asked men whether they would take her in their cars or on horseback, pretending to need to visit her sick mother. But after those men agreed, she turned into a monster with burning eyes, the head of a horse, and fearsome teeth. Women in Costa Rica love this story because boyfriends and husbands alike will think twice about taking off with a beautiful unknown lady. She could turn out to be La Segua. Once again, our vegetarian friends from the ground floor. The path leads us to one of the many hidden waterfalls, a magnificent natural spectacle. The water is so pure, and just the sight of this natural shower refreshes the body and soul. In fact, a place to stay forever. But there is still so much to see. It's an incredible feeling when the jungle releases you to these magic coasts and a fresh breeze replaces the heat of the forest. Another attraction provided by nature. The sunsets of the tropical rainforest gild this unforgettable part of the planet. Let us sit down and enjoy it. Pelicans are flying again. They need a long runway to get airborne, but once they get themselves in the air, they can fly long ranges. The jungle has many secrets and myths about the history of Costa Rica. In the beginning of the 20th century, they found mysterious stone balls in the rainforest. Their formation leads us to the Diquis, the indigenous people of Costa Rica. And one assumes that the Diquis were on a similar level of development to the Mayans and the Aztecs. Nowadays, indigenous people still live in the tropical rainforest and follow their traditions and rituals like dances with fire, fighting games, or black magic ceremonies. The jungle supplies them not only food, but also energy and healing plants, and the faith in the harmony of nature. The natives use every part of an animal they kill. They eat the meat, make jewelry out of the bones, shoes out of the skins, and even the claws are used as tools. The Malacu Indians have their own language that is based on the Mayans. system of the rainforest is very complex. Trees transpire water, and so clouds are created. Clouds here in Costa Rica are truly colossal. Those gigantic clouds emerging from the wet woodlands have an important function. They filter direct sunshine. They provide a layer against the sun or a filter for the earth. In other words, no more forest, no more clouds. Without clouds, the earth would go dry. And you would not want to imagine that. This is why the protection of the rainforest is so important. Spiritual human beings come from all over the world to meet in special places of the rainforest, to dance in the moonlight and feel the energy of nature. The seemingly endless amount of life makes the forest so impressive and incomprehensible. You can't talk enough about the importance of rainforests to our ecology. The trees take the greenhouse gas carbon dioxide out of our atmosphere. Think about them as huge storage tanks. If we continue to deforest and clear these woods, the stores will be lost, and that's bad for us. Now we'll take a last trip through the jungle to a very special destination. The peak of power and strength of Costa Rica's nature is in 7 active volcanoes. Surrounded by the rainforest, we can look into the spectacular crater of the Poas volcano. In the early 50s was the last time it spit ash and vapor up to 8,000 meters into the atmosphere, and still today it coughs and gurgles dangerously from the deep. There's a nice story about the volcano named Poas. According to the legend, there once lived a bird called Rualdo in the rainforest surrounding the mountain. The bird had a beautiful voice. One day, when the volcano spit fire, people became afraid and thought about how to calm the mountain. The volcano demanded a sacrifice in the form of a beautiful young girl. Rualdo, the bird, was friends with the chosen girl. She was terrified, and Rualdo wanted to save her, so he flew right into the center of the hot crater. He sang a beautiful song, and the volcano cried over the heartbreaking melody. The bird asked the volcano to save the girl and offered his golden voice. The volcano agreed. The girl was saved, but Rualdo never sung another tune since that day. On the way back, we'll pass by all we've seen again and say adios. The plants, the smells, the exotic sounds, the trees, the beaches, the sea, and the sunset. Nos vemos. See you.